to anything. So show me these messages you were talking about.
You want to see those?
Yeah, I want to see these messages you kept talking about. He's checking his DMs of all the women that is hitting on him.
That comment you made was not smart because all of them are like, let's see it. It's fire D's. I was like, yeah, it probably wasn't the best because now I'm getting hit on. Look, come holler at me and we'll send Gypsy somewhere else and you can lay it on me.
I knew that was going to happen. That's why I was like, let's get a joint account because I knew that it was going to happen. This is actually kind of the first time I've been honest. Besides being honest, with my attorneys, even that, I haven't been completely honest with them.
I am so in love with this man. In the 5 years that we were separated, I was in pain. I couldn't get over him. Like, we were robbed of a real relationship, of a real chance together. And I know I'm bawling right now. It's just, I'm so emotional.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back. It's Monday, December 2nd, 2024, and today we're talking about Gypsy Rose Blanchard's latest drama on the internet. While she keeps playing the victim, rumors are swirling that her upcoming Lifetime series will portray her as someone bullied by the internet. But let's not forget she willingly stepped into the public eye, hoping to cash in on her infamy by becoming a social media influencer. She's talked about everything from makeup to her exes, her current boyfriend, her pregnancy, and everyone she claims wronged her. Gypsy has also used her platform to rally friends against her critics. She's indirectly shared people's phone numbers, addresses, and real names. She's even posted police reports about those who dare to criticize her. All this behavior? Pure gaslighting. Here's the real tea. Gypsy's about to become a mom, and there's a high chance CPS will be involved the day her baby is born. Why? Because she's still on parole. Technically, she's still considered an inmate in Missouri and hasn't completed her full sentence. Oh, and here's the kicker, she's legally married to one man, but is having a baby with another. The baby's paternity hasn't even been legally confirmed yet. It's a total mess. A couple of weeks ago, Gypsy got into hot water with her parole officers and had to go offline after stirring up trouble again. I even got a chance to speak with someone close to the situation. Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back. It's Monday, December 2nd, 2024, and today we're talking about Gypsy Rose Blanchard's latest drama on the internet. While she keeps playing the victim, rumors are swirling that her upcoming Lifetime series will portray her as someone bullied by the internet. But let's not forget she willingly stepped into the public eye, hoping to cash in on her infamy by becoming a social media influencer. She's talked about everything from makeup to her exes, her current boyfriend, her pregnancy, and everyone she claims wronged her. Gypsy has also used her platform to rally friends against her critics. She's indirectly shared people's phone numbers, addresses, and real names. She's even posted police reports about those who dared to criticize her. All this behavior? Pure gaslighting. Here's the real tea. Gypsy's about to become a mom, and there's a high chance CPS will be involved the day her baby is born. Why? Because she's still on parole. Technically, she's still considered an inmate in Missouri and hasn't completed her full sentence. Oh, and here's the kicker, she's legally married to one man, but is having a baby with another. The baby's paternity hasn't even been legally confirmed yet. It's a total mess. A couple of weeks ago, Gypsy got into hot water with her parole officers and had to go offline after stirring up trouble again. I even got a chance to speak with someone close to the situation. Let's talk about the Bayou. Gypsy's story has caught attention there too. I spoke to someone who knows the family, though not directly. Her husband's brother is related to Christy because, well, everyone seems to be related down in the Bayou. This person has also dealt with DCFS in that area, so she understands how things might unfold. Additionally, I spoke with someone who works with women in Texas and Louisiana going through re-entry after prison. They explained what it's like for someone like Gypsy to give birth while still on parole, especially with her type of criminal record. What does this mean for the baby? It's hard to say. There's been a lot of public fantasy around Gypsy's pregnancy, gender reveals, baby showers, setting up a nursery as if everything will be perfectly normal. But the reality, we don't even know if she get custody of the child. CPS could step in immediately. Louisiana has strict laws about the best interest of a child, especially when the parent's past involves harming a family member. Gypsy's situation doesn't exactly inspire confidence. So let's dive into it. I'm someone who's spoken with multiple people familiar with these processes, and it's clear this story is far from simple.
I'm a person that I'm taking the steps to make sure that I'm mentally stable enough to be a parent. I might not be a perfect parent. Nobody is.
Yeah.
But I am going to do the best I can and make educated choices with my child and have this.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard is good at a few things: lying, manipulating, and conning people. For years, she faked being unable to walk, even going to the hospital and playing the victim so convincingly that she wouldn't move for days, pretending she couldn't feel her legs even though she knew she could walk. She and her mother were raking in money, donations, and celebrity attention for this charade. Now, after being released from prison, Gypsy is still not done with her sentence. She hasn't even completed the outpatient therapy she's required to do as part of her sentence. She was offered therapy in prison, but refused to take it. Now she's out and already setting the stage in interviews and podcasts to let people know she won't be the perfect parent. She's practically setting herself up to fail, saying she make mistakes and that she's not equipped to be a parent. But the truth is, Gypsy can barely take care of herself. She can't live on her own, doesn't have stable employment, and the things she's doing, podcasts, writing books, and appearing on shows, aren't sustainable. They won't teach her the real-world skills she needs to have a normal life. She's grifting off her infamy, trying to turn it into fame, but that's never going to work. She'll always be infamous, no matter what she tries. Back in July, I spoke with Gypsy's mother, Christy Blanchard, about this. I told her that, according to Louisiana law and child welfare, Gypsy might not be legally cleared to be a parent. She's still an inmate in Missouri, and having committed a violent crime against her mother, there's a real concern that she could be a danger to a child. Christy knew CPS would get involved. In fact, rumors were already circulating that CPS had made contact with them around that time. It was the same interview where Ken made some strange comments about co-parenting with Gypsy. Something isn't right here, and it's clear that this whole situation is heading for disaster.
More about the technical things. So I am still living with my parents in Cutoff, which is an hour away from him. So we're like, and I'm going to be living there until I'm off of parole. So we're like, okay, how is this going to work whenever the baby's born? Like, how many days can I spend with you? And how many days can you spend with me? You know, who will she be with? As you know, we're going back and forth and we're doing kind of essentially co-parenting. Had together, it was magical, but in a sense, it was a honeymoon phase all over again. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I need to know how you react to conflict. What are your parenting goals? What are your parenting skills? Like, you know, what are your thoughts for the future? Those are all really significant conversations that couples usually have, you know, well into a year of their relationship. And here,
Gypsy Rose Blanchard is on parole, and she's got restrictions that are stacking the odds against her. One of the biggest ones is that she has to live with her mom, her stepmom, and her dad. She can't even leave her parish without getting approval. She has to ask for permission to travel, which is a huge challenge when you've got a kid to take care of. It's funny though, because she's calling what she's doing co-parenting, but that's not really what it is. You can't call it co-parenting if you're not in a real relationship. The guy she's with, they were barely a couple before she got pregnant. They met in prison and had a typical prison relationship. Back in July, Gypsy even considered breaking up with him because she thought he was a loser, a bartender, and she didn't think that job would be suitable for raising a kid. She even said he was too immature. It's all a mess. They throw around terms like co-parenting without really explaining anything. Where's the baby going to live? Who's actually taking care of the child? The whole thing feels more like a custody issue than anything else. If Gypsy is supposed to be the primary caregiver, why isn't she the one making the decisions about where the child will stay? But instead, it sounds like they're dodging the real questions. As for Gypsy's parole, she keeps claiming having a baby doesn't violate it, and technically, she's right. But that doesn't mean everything's okay. Being on parole while raising a baby is risky. At any moment, she could get arrested and thrown back into prison. The truth is, this whole situation is just a smokescreen. There's a lot of coded language, and Gypsy is lying through her teeth. She might think she's getting away with it, but it's only a matter of time before the reality of her parole and her choices catch up to her when it comes to the best interests of a child. Especially when a parent is on parole, things get messy, especially if that parent isn't following the conditions of their parole. Gypsy is still not in full compliance with hers, and it raises a lot of questions about her ability to care for a child. If things go south with Gypsy and Ken and they break up, what happens? If they end up in family court, or if someone in her family, maybe an aunt, an uncle, or even a sibling, files an emergency petition for parental termination, what happens to the baby then? Worse yet, what if someone from the public tips off CPS about a potentially at-risk child? It's a complicated situation. Technically, it's not illegal for Gypsy to have a baby while on parole, but it's still a huge risk. She hasn't completed her full sentence, and there's still a lot left for her to do before she's considered to have successfully finished her parole. She also has mandatory mental health requirements that she's supposed to meet. The state of Missouri has flagged her as possibly unstable due to the trauma she endured as a child, and that's not something to ignore. Let's not forget what Gypsy's past entails. She killed her mother. That's matricide, a crime against a family member, and it's not something that can just be swept under the rug. When you have a violent crime in your history, especially murder, it has a direct impact on your ability to have custody of a child if this goes to family court. Or if CPS gets involved, her past conviction could be used against her. The state of Louisiana is all about what's best for the child, and that includes assessing the potential for abuse and the emotional stability of the parent. And with Gypsy's history and her mental health needs, it's hard to argue that. She's the best person to care for a child. All these factors, her failure to follow parole, her violent past, and her ongoing mental health issues, create a situation where it's not just about whether Gypsy can have a baby on parole. It's about whether or not she's fit to be a parent at all. If CPS gets involved or family members intervene, this baby could be at serious risk, and that's something that no one can afford to ignore. When it comes to deciding what's truly in the best interest of a child, there are a lot of factors to consider. One of the big ones is whether a parent can actually provide love, affection, and spiritual guidance. Gypsy's situation doesn't really line up here. She doesn't even have her own place to live, and she doesn't have stable employment. She relies heavily on her stepmother and Ken to get by, whether it's for day-to-day needs or even just for transportation. Gypsy doesn't have a driver's license and hasn't taken steps to get one, which doesn't disqualify her from being a parent, but it's not exactly a good sign. She also doesn't have her own health insurance and is still relying on her ex-husband's plan, which is concerning for someone in her position. Then there's the issue of the family unit. She's in a new relationship with Ken, but they're not even married. To make things even more complicated, she's still legally married to someone else. She also hasn't had a stable family environment in years. She was separated from her mother for a long period before her arrest, and during her 8 years in prison, she didn't have any real family connection with Christy or Rod, Gypsy's. Moral fitness is also a major concern. She has a history of substance abuse, which she's admitted to, but has never sought treatment for. She claims to have struggled with opiate addiction, but that's a problem that hasn't been addressed. On top of that, there's her violent past, her felony conviction for murdering her mother. All of this paints a very troubling picture when it comes to her ability to provide a stable, healthy environment for a child. The mental and physical health of the parent matters too, and in Gypsy's case, it's clear she has some unresolved issues. despite her history of abuse and trauma, she's never received the mental health treatment she clearly needs. And it's important to note that being an abused child doesn't give her a free pass when it comes to taking care of a new child. When we look at the history of the child's home, school, and community ties, we have to ask, what kind of stability can Gypsy provide? What about the child's reasonable preferences? And if this child ends up in a custody battle, what happens when Gypsy doesn't even have a stable home or a real support system? The facts are clear, Gypsy isn't ready to be a parent, and there's no guarantee that she can provide a safe, healthy, and stable environment for a child when it comes to the responsibility for a child's care, especially in cases involving family violence. The court is supposed to determine custody and visitation based on a history of violence. If one instance of family violence results in serious bodily injury, the court can consider that when deciding custody. And from a DCFS standpoint, there's a real risk that Gypsy could repeat the cycle of abuse. She was raised in an abusive home, and while that doesn't excuse her crime, it's important to recognize there's a real risk that Gypsy could repeat the cycle of abuse. She was raised in an abusive home, and while that doesn't excuse her crime, it's important to recognize that without proper therapy and a real understanding of her actions, she might pass on the same patterns of manipulation and lying. Gypsy and her mother grifted and faked illnesses to get free stuff. Now, as a mother, she might do the same to her child. This could lead to the child being subjected to what's known as Munchausen by proxy or factitious disorder, where a parent fabricates or induces illness in their child for attention. There's a risk that Gypsy could put her child in that position, even though some might argue it's not the same thing. Either way, it's clear that the child would be in danger. Gypsy is also in trouble if this ever goes to family court. If she and Ken split up, a judge will look at her criminal history, and convictions for felonies like homicide, aggravated assault, stalking, or anything that endangers a child often result in parents losing custody. Her violent past, especially her conviction for murder, will absolutely be a factor in any custody battle. If CPS gets involved, they'll look at every criminal convictions can absolutely prevent a parent from gaining or retaining custody of their child. Any felony conviction involving violence, like aggravated assault, homicide, kidnapping, or stalking, can bar a parent from having custody. In some cases, a judge might allow supervised visitation, but those are rare exceptions. A past conviction from many years ago, especially if it wasn't violent or if it was a misdemeanor, might be overlooked. But Gypsy's case is different. Her conviction for matricide killing her own mother cannot be ignored, and if she ends up in family court, especially if she and Ken break up, she's not going to win custody. The law won't let her. I spoke with a woman who works with female ex-prisoners in re-entry programs, helping them with treatment, job training, and building stable lives. Gypsy hasn't done any of this. She hasn't taken the necessary steps for rehabilitation or personal growth, and she's not been given the tools to succeed given Gypsy's criminal history and the fact that she's still on parole. There's a very real chance that CPS is already involved, especially considering her concerning public statements. She has publicly talked about her co-defendant, Nick, and made disturbing comments about how if they had a child, he would essay the child when it turned 13 or 14. These statements alone raise huge red flags. Her crime itself had a highly sexual and deviant nature, even though she wasn't charged with a sex crime. That level of deviant behavior, combined with her lack of moral clarity, puts her child at risk. CPS will also look at how well she's been complying with her parole. Has she had violations? Has she been in trouble? It's not looking good for Gypsy. She hasn't proven she can be a responsible, stable parent. Her past, her criminal actions, and her failure to follow parole guidelines all make it highly unlikely she ever be granted custody. And it's very possible CPS will step in to protect the child before it's too late. Has Gypsy been warned about her behavior? Yes. Has she been threatening people? Yes. Has she had issues with her parole? Yes. Has she been told that if she screws up again, she could go back to prison? Yes. Does she have a history of mental illness? Yes. Is she being properly treated for it? No. Has she admitted to having overwhelming emotions and anger issues? Yes, we've seen her lose control on TV. She's also admitted to playing games with people to hurt them and has openly confessed to being a pathological liar. This is a huge problem for her. Gypsy lives in a fantasy world where she believes she has the same rights as any other mother, but that's simply not the reality. She's not free to be a mother right now. She's under strict supervision by the state of Missouri, and they have the final say in what happens to her. Her parole is her top priority, and her criminal history and lack of recovery make it unlikely she be given any real parental rights anytime soon. Given all of this, CPS could step in and decide that someone else in the family should be the child's custodian. They might even limit Gypsy's contact with the child until she can prove she's done the necessary work to become a responsible parent. If Gypsy and Ken split up and a DCFS investigation takes place, CPS could determine that Ken is the more responsible party, which might mean Gypsy could be kept from living with her child. There's a good chance they'll tell Ken that he can have custody of the baby, but Gypsy can't live with them, especially given her history and the restrictions on her living situation. These living restrictions aren't just about parole, they're about the fact that Gypsy is at risk of losing custody of this child. Her family knew this was a possibility, which is why they feared her getting pregnant. They were worried she wouldn't be equipped to handle motherhood, and it's looking more and more like they were right. There's a lot of deception going on, and they're acting like everything is fine, but it's not. The reality is, Gypsy is in a fragile position, and CPS will likely step in if they see any risk to the child's safety. Gypsy's family has long feared that the child would be taken by the state due to her parole, and they were right to be concerned. Don't be fooled by her performance or her attempts to make it seem like everything is fine. She's been manipulating people for years, and this is just more of the same. I spoke with someone from Lafarge Parish who has experience with families on parole and probation. They said that when a parent with a violent history is involved, CPS is usually there at the birth, making decisions about the child's medical care and living arrangements. If Gypsy is deemed unfit to care for her child, the question arises, can Christy and Rod take custody of the baby? The answer is complicated. They can't take the child unless Gypsy moves out. But if she moves out, she violates her parole, which will only make things worse. This entire situation is chaotic, and the child is caught in the middle of it. No child deserves to be born into this mess. I'm not celebrating the possibility that Gypsy could lose her child, but it's important to face the reality of the situation. If this doesn't happen before Gypsy and Ken split up, it will likely happen afterward. Gypsy will not be raising this child. She won't be able to overcome her past, especially her felony conviction for matricide. Her history of violence against a family member puts her at risk for repeating that behavior, and that's a real threat to her child. When Gypsy and Ryan split, she was proud that she didn't kill him. That was her accomplishment, not killing him, and that's what she bragged about. Is that someone you want raising a child? Would you want a parent who's out there doxing people, stalking and harassing critics, and threatening them with guns? Would you want someone with that level of violence and obsession with themselves and their image raising a child? This is a woman who said she didn't have time to donate to a child, yet she's somehow supposed to prioritize motherhood. The truth is, Gypsy isn't capable of putting her child first, and the state will likely step in to protect this child from the chaos she's created. When you're a parent, you're not donating, you're simply doing your job as a parent. Gypsy doesn't seem to understand that if DCFS hasn't already made contact with her, it's only a matter of time. Once they do, she has to jump through a series of hoops to prove her fitness as a parent. One of those steps will likely involve a full neuropsychological evaluation, not just some half-hearted telehealth session with a therapist who isn't actually doing the thorough testing needed to diagnose potential personality disorder or something. Many believe she has. The reality is, this baby is at risk of a lifetime of exploitation, abuse, and neglect. The best outcome for the child might be for Gypsy's parental rights to be stripped entirely, and for someone else like Ken or another family member to raise the child. I don't think Gypsy fully grasps how serious this situation is. Continued reckless behavior only makes it easier for parole officers and CPS to determine that she's unfit to care for a child. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Could she end up with the child? Sure, but if this goes to family court, most judges won't grant her custody, especially with her conviction for murder. This wasn't a simple assault or battery, it was murder. It's a violent crime that, in most cases, would disqualify her from being a parent. There's no way around that. What do you think about this situation? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching!